Texas Congressman Hurd is a member of the House Intelligence, Homeland Security, and Oversights Committee. Never a dull Saturday, I tell you. Let me first just ask you to respond to President Trump's tweets, because here's one of a series of them, and I'm going to read, and I'm quoting, "Terrible!" exclamation point. "Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism." However, he provided no proof of this. If the administration is going to make an accusation like this, obviously they must have proof. So what are they waiting for to tell us all where they're getting this information?
Well, I don't know what they're waiting on, but if something like this were to happen, and I have no indication that it did or it didn't, what would have happened was that federal law enforcement would have gone, and probably with someone at DOJ, not necessarily the Attorney General, but approval to go to a FISA court to get the approval to wiretap someone, an individual. You don't just tap a building or a facility. And in that process, you would have had a FISA judge believe that there was probable cause to issue that warrant for that type of activity. It's rare for this type of approval to come from a White House, and this is one of the reasons why you have an independent in federal law enforcement arm.
Okay, but so the accusation in of itself is a very serious one to make, okay? When it comes to any investigation, if you're talking a criminal investigation, if you're talking of something that requires investigation, typically you hold the information back until you've got all your ducks in a row and you do your entire investigation. Once you've gotten all your proof and your facts, you withhold it, and then you reveal it, but only when you have the proof. I mean, that is how law enforcement conducts murder investigations, okay? So to come forward and give this all out there, doesn't that hamper the investigation? I mean, it's out there now.
I agree with you 100%. I'd love for you to come down to Congress and brief that to some of my colleagues.
Is that an invitation? Oh my gosh. Please invite me and I will come.
I would love to have you down there, because you're absolutely right. Let federal law enforcement do their job, and
that's what I'm saying.
Where that goes. And then it's the responsibility of the oversight committees within the House and the Senate to make sure that federal law enforcement did its job.
And is it the responsibility of the president to make the announcement that this is happening, or that this is currently being investigated?
That it would be atypical for something like that to happen. But I think all of my friends on both sides of the political aisle, in the legislative and the executive branch, need to be more precise with the language that they use. They need to also make sure that we're allowing law enforcement to do their jobs.
Right.
I think the Russian involvement in trying to manipulate our elections is a serious thing, and it needs to be pursued in a bipartisan, thoughtful, and comprehensive manner, and that some of the temperatures on both sides of the political aisle needs to come down so that we can redress this appropriately.
You know, I want to talk about the timing in this, because timing is everything, it seems, these days. And these tweets actually come at a time after President Trump had been uncharacteristically silent on Twitter since his joint session speech to Congress. It also comes at the heels of the Trump administration, which has obviously been under siege over campaign contacts with Russian officials. But also, some would believe that revelations made about Attorney General Jeff Sessions and his communication with the Russians while he was campaigning, and he had said that he did not have any, and it turns out he did, that also happened to come a day out after President Trump's high after his joint session speech. So is this sort of quid pro quo? I mean, it's like, I've got dirt on you, and you're going to release dirt on me, so now I'm going to release dirt on you. I mean, how much of it can you believe, and how much of timing do you believe is making this almost like an intentional move, like a premeditated, you know, they've got a war chest of information, and they're just going to, you know, every time somebody upsets the White House, they're just going to empty their war chest?
Well, I have no unique insight into why the timing or the intentions of the president. It seems like both sides of the political divide are always trying to engage in this game of one-upsmanship in the press. When it comes to serious investigations about Russian involvement in our elections, to federal law enforcement investigations, these are not things that should be debated while while they're ongoing in the public. There should be transparency, but it has the impact. You could potentially impact the investigation by talking about them prematurely. Yeah. And this is something that I think both sides of this argument needs to be paying attention of. And I think Attorney General Sessions recusing himself from any involvement in future investigations is the right move.
It was a stand-up move. It was a stand-up move. I believe that it needed to be done. I believe that the left trying to call for his resignation might be a bit extreme. Let's get all the information first, which is why this investigation and all these investigations, including the investigation about Russia and revelations, whether or not they had anything to do with the presidential campaign, all of that needs to be kept in a tight box until investigators get all their information. What does your committee have to say? What have you learned as far as the investigation with Russia? And now that Jeff Sessions has recused himself, do you feel that this investigation will move forward quickly? Because answers need to come out so that they can finally put this to rest once and for all.
I agree. This needs to be moved quickly. We need the Senate to act on the nomination of the Deputy Attorney General. We have an acting Deputy Attorney General who will be involved in making these decisions, or can potentially tap one of the 92 U.S. attorneys to be involved in this. Many of those 92 have been appointed by the previous administration. And what the House Oversight Committee, or the oversight arm of the Intelligence Committee, is going to be looking at, we're going to be still looking at the cyber activity that the Russians potentially use, how and what they did in order to try to manipulate our election. We're going to look to make sure federal law enforcement reviewed contact between anybody and Russian involvement, and what was our response, a governmental response to these issues. These are all the things that are within bounds of the investigation. We want to do it quickly, but it's going to be done thoroughly, and there's going to be a component where we can talk to be made public, because I think it's important for the American people to understand this. But I just want to make sure that we need to do this in a bipartisan, comprehensive fashion in order to make sure we were able to lay this to bed one way or the other.
All right, Congressman Will Hurd, thank you very much. We appreciate it, and I would love to see you in Washington someday.
We'll make that happen.
Thank you.